So it's a good afternoon, everyone. We wanted to host this in the Bay Area, but today we are doing it online. It also helps us to get a few more attendees from other parts of the U.S. Attending the event. We also made it open for our customers in Europe, and whoever is awake in India or also will join the conference. So it's great to be speaking to you today. Over the next 20 minutes, I will focus on three areas. I will showcase the recent findings from a study on engineering and R&D, and the key reasons for the increase in digital engineering spend across industry verticals. The second part of my talk is going to focus on the impact of COVID-19 on various industry verticals. And finally, I will share our view on the key trends that will play out across companies as we come out on the other side of the current challenges. First, let me clarify what we mean by digital engineering. Digital engineering investment is the money spent by large technology companies in building new products or services or enabling their existing products or services using modern technologies such as AI, cloud, IoT, and microservices. For example, the spend by Microsoft in building their Azure platform, or even by automotive companies building the connected car platform on top of existing platforms of Microsoft and Amazon and others, is considered as digital engineering. To put it simply, any client-facing innovation using digital technologies is what we call as digital engineering. We did our first study on digital transformation in 2013, and I was in an interview with one of our large automotive OEMs. The engineering leader said that they don't consider software engineers as engineers. They said they call them IT analysts. In fact, their engineering job codes didn't have software roles in it. And how the world has changed in the last 5 years. The top 1,000 global engineering and R&D spenders spend over $400 billion on digital engineering, almost doubled in the last 5 years, a trend that will only accelerate in the next few years. Companies had to change their talent strategy to increase the mix of software engineers, change their processes to be more agile and lean. More importantly, they have to change the culture of how they get things done in their organizations. In fact, many of the large enterprises are going through massive organization changes to replicate the organization structure and roles similar to software companies in the world. You can witness that in the number of large enterprises hiring top leadership talent from software companies. North America is leading the world in overall spend as of 2019, with over 58% of the global digital engineering spend is concentrated in North America. Here we have accounted the spend in the headquarter location of the company, and West Coast is dominated by software internet, semiconductor, and consumer electronic companies. And East Coast is dominated by healthcare, software, and industrial companies. Due to the strength of the software and digital capabilities in the West Coast, over 250 of the large global R&D spenders based in Europe, Japan, and Asia set up their technology centers in the Bay Area to tap into the talent ecosystem. However, most of these companies are struggling to scale their operations due to high cost of engineers and the general inability to attract top talent. Many of the R&D centers of these companies now operate what we call as listening posts and as a center for innovation with tech giants where they partner with companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon, and also work with startups in the Bay Area to drive co-innovation. Many of these companies are also set up their technology center in Eastern Europe, China, and India to tap into the digital talent in these locations. Services-led industries be it banking, media, healthcare, have increased the digital engineering spend in the last few years. Goldman Sachs recently launched Marcus, a pure digital bank. Disney launched their direct-to-consumer platform, Disney Plus. Most of these companies have hired senior leaders from the technology companies to key roles within these organizations. The biggest change management in these companies is on creating space for roles like product management, which they never had. The business used to define what they need to do. They asked the business analysts to translate that to requirements for the technology team. But today, they're creating product management teams very similar to what is there in technology companies to define the roadmap and product vision for the organization. The organization structure of these large service-led companies will start mimicking software internet companies in the near future. Digital engineering will continue to accelerate across industry verticals. However, we have seen a massive disruption in the last few weeks that has brought the economy and business across the world to a standstill. The next few slides will focus on our view on the impact to the various industry segments. This slide shows the impact of COVID-19 across different industry verticals. We analyze the impact due to multiple factors, such as how will the dramatic change in consumer confidence impact the different industries? Does the industry employ a globalized workforce to ensure continuity during times of crisis? How well capitalized are the companies in the industry to weather the current impact? How well is the industry equipped to run operations remotely, along with the level of investments in enabling technology such as cloud and automation? And of course, the disruption in the supply chain based on exposure to disease epicenters. As you can see in this slide, industries such as aerospace, automotive, and travel and hospitality are deeply impacted. A combination of consumer demand going down, as well as in industries such as aerospace and automotive, even the supply chain is getting impacted. The industries which are largely digital, be it the media entertainment, you have software, internet, and these verticals have come up relatively unscathed, and then we believe these verticals will be strong as they get into the next level. And if you look at this slide, we'll talk about aero, auto, and telecom. Perhaps the most affected of all verticals is the aerospace industry. Plummeting demand for aviation has already led to low demand for aircrafts. Companies such as Boeing, who are already in trouble, are deeply impacted. Not just the airline and aerospace companies, but the companies in the entire value chain, including software and services companies who sell into these industries, are deeply impacted. The industry can expect and will get government bailouts to keep them afloat. We can expect some major mergers and acquisition in the industry, similar to what happened to banks during the 2008 financial crisis. In the automotive space, supply chain disruption already caused a domino effect on global production. We have seen instances where OEMs had to airlift parts from suppliers due to shortage. Consumer demand is likely to be strained as people cut back on discretionary spend. However, we can expect the governments to relax carbon emission norms, green norms in general. That will boost consumption and reduce the overall engineering cost of the transition to electric vehicles for the large OEMs and tier 1 suppliers in automotive. And this will create a demand for conventional engines, and companies would potentially start investing and building a lot more of large vehicles, SUVs, which they might have higher profit margin on these verticals. There are some interesting questions emerge if the current crisis persists in low grade for a long period. Will consumers move back to buying their own cars instead of using ride-sharing platforms like Lyft and Uber? It remains to be seen. Telecom sector is impacted to a lesser degree. We have seen increased demand for communication and bandwidth given enterprise focus on work from home. OTT media consumption is going to increase in the short term as people stay indoors and watch Netflix, Disney Plus, and other channels. We might see a delay in 5G deployments as key component suppliers are around Wuhan and Hubei. However, we see this coming back to normal very soon as China already has, especially the Wuhan region, already has zero local infections in the last 2 or 3 days. In semiconductor, very interesting trends, right? Supply chain constraints along with demand side stress will cause slight worry for the semiconductor industry. The foundry industry has a high degree of fab automation and thus is less impacted by the outbreak. And the EDA companies have expanded the cloud-based design and verification environments. This will allow engineers to work from home. Even though the smartphone demand might go down, thereby semiconductor companies could get impacted, we strongly believe the data center demand is expected to increase, and these are usually a very profitable business for companies like Intel. We also see a large OEMs dropping their own silicon effort and increase the partnership with companies like Intel and Qualcomm in the medium to long term. If you look at the last few years, the trend was the large customers of the large semiconductor companies were trying to build their own chips as a source of differentiation. We are not sure if they will have the right R&D investment to continue to spend on building their own chips and increase the reliance on the large semiconductor companies. A good industry to be in currently is the enterprise software companies, be it Salesforce, Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle, SAP. It has emerged relatively unscathed thanks to the healthy workforce globalization levels and the industry's digital readiness to enable remote operations to work seamlessly. With a focus on remote operations, certain products have witnessed an increased demand. Collaboration tools, in particular, have witnessed a big-time uptick. Microsoft yesterday had 44 million concurrent users. Tool makers are offering chat and video conferencing facilities, and cybersecurity products will also become important to build secure tech infrastructure. The cloud journey will witness an increased acceleration, as well as more workloads are likely to be shifted off-premise. Consumer software companies are impacted based on the end vertical space they operate in. Companies related to travel, hospitality, such as Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, will face similar challenges faced by an airline industry, a Marriott, Hilton, while companies in retail delivery, such as Instacart, DoorDash, will do better during and post the current crisis. Consumer electronic industry has witnessed an exceptional innovation in the last decade through the massive growth of smartphones. However, smartphones are in an incremental phase of innovation in the last 2 years. When consumer demand goes down, the refresh cycle for the products could get extended. Our view is that companies such as Apple, Samsung will increase their focus on services revenue to increase revenue per customer, as well as increase the share of annual recurring revenue, very similar to what SaaS companies are measuring themselves. The industrial manufacturing sector is bound to be affected by production stoppages. Globally, countries are reporting reduced factory activity. Add that to decreased demand from end industries, and we can see the impact multiplying many folds globally. Companies are expected to double down on investments in Industry 4.0 and automation initiatives to insulate against future concerns. COVID-19 has severe pricing implication on the oil industry. The industry is starting at a decline in demand for the first time in a decade. The oil price is already less than $25 a barrel. Low industrial activity and drop in aviation demand has caused this decline, as well as the competition between OPEC and Russia, and they've really not reduced the oil production in the last month, and that is also creating huge supply in the market. Although oil prices will force companies to relook at their overall cost structure through a combination of reduced capex expenses, increased automation, and workforce globalization. Retail space is definitely going to be affected big time as offline stores, malls, etc. are shut down. Customers will focus only on essential items and cut back on spend on luxury items across the globe. The entire industry will focus on digital technologies for sales as well as operations. Areas such as digital commerce, supply chain modernization, remote monitoring will occupy high mindshare of executives in this vertical. Healthcare-led verticals will generally do good. I don't have this in the slide, but healthcare-led verticals will generally do good and will come out stronger post the crisis. We expect regulations to be relaxed to enable faster innovation across pharma companies and medical devices companies to use data, AI, machine learning technologies to drive both in drug development as well as diagnostics. Providers will accelerate the technology adoption. Providers in this sense is hospitals will accelerate the technology adoption, and that could be efforts to centralize information sharing between hospitals across the world. All of this will require massive technology investments across the healthcare value chain over the next several years. Even though the industries are deeply impacted by the current crisis, we will get to the other side of this. When we do get back in the next few months, we believe that the priorities and the way of working for companies will go through a massive change. Here are some of the major changes we expect. Enterprises will undertake a massive acceleration in technology adoption. We expect the move to public and hybrid clouds to accelerate. Regulations will be changed across industries to allow companies to seamlessly use the cloud infrastructure to reduce cost and provide business continuity flexibilities. Companies will increase their focus on automation. Already we see companies bring their operations and technology teams together. More companies will reorganize the teams so that they can move their spend from operations to technology to drive intelligent automation of business processes and factories. We will see an increased adoption of 5G as automation increases in factories and work from home becomes a norm for a large percentage of technology talent. Blockchain adoption will increase to reduce the intermediaries in financial transactions, supply chains, and other process flows. Investment will increase in cybersecurity across industry segments. We will also see an acceleration in business model transitions. Companies will increase their focus on pure digital products and services. For example, smartphone manufacturers will increase their focus on digital services revenue and reduce the frequent incremental product updates. Enterprises will work towards a multi-hub strategy to ensure continuity. We will witness an increase in alternative or pseudo headquarters of companies. This will ensure that when one command center is down, the other can contribute as effectively as the erstwhile mothership. Developing a global business continuity plan will be a clarion call of enterprises. It will be a board mandate for companies to test their business continuity plans, even for smaller companies. Most companies will not need to have the same level of commercial real estate as they come out of this crisis. Work from home is likely to be a new normal for at least a portion of the talent. This could also have additional benefits. Many of the women who are not able to get back to work post-maternity because they had to travel to office every day will have options open up to continue to work because of the newer flexibilities to work from home. Technology will be the heart of an enterprise. Companies will do massive reorganization to bring key technology leaders in key business roles in the companies, not just as CIO and CTO roles. Last but not the least, companies will stay close to their core competency and differentiation. They will rely on partners in other areas. The period of vertical integration of industries will potentially end, and we will get back to a tiered structure in automotive, consumer electronics, and other key verticals. Companies will increase the reliance on global engineering service providers with delivery capability across various global locations. Co-innovation with startups will also increase, with companies creating structured partnership with startups for both new innovation and go-to-market partnerships. The new normal for companies, the partners, and employees will look very different in the next few years. I'm sure all of us will rise to the occasion to create impact to ourselves, our companies, and communities. Thank you.